Hello, YouTubers. G. Christopher here on Ball Sunday. Go Carolina. Although I'm a Miami fan, I don't give a shit about either of these teams, but I wouldn't mind Carolina pulling this out. We'll see. Anyways, the reason why I was making another video here is a very interesting topic that's come to my attention, and it's somewhat really funny. I live in Utah, if any of y'all know Sandy, Utah, and there's been on the news lately about how Utah apparently is getting national attention too, because Utah apparently has it's not that shocking. Well, it's somewhat shocking, being that the state it's from, but it's not that shocking. And I'm about to explain why. And I'm by no means a psychologist, sociologist, whatever. I have no credentials or anything, but I have raised kids. I have 3 kids. One's 23. I have a 26-year-old and a 28-year-old daughter. Now, what I was referring to is lately, I guess they had Senate hearings in Utah about the sexual addiction of porn. That is Utah ranks very high among the states for porn use. I don't think it's on top. I heard recently a poll was like Washington, D.C. or something like that, which is interesting, but Utah ranks up there. Mississippi is another one. Usually on the Bible belts, there's a lot of porn use along there. Anyways, I was raised Catholic. I became a Baptist, and then I became a Mormon. Well, my mom did. I was not too much into it, but I was raised by a woman, and she is a Shiite Mormon, as I like to call it, because she is more into the Mormon Church than if there was a Jesus Christ. That's another topic, because I don't believe in a Jesus Christ. But if there was a Jesus Christ, she takes it more seriously than he would. She was just, faithful, Book of Mormon thumping, Pearl of Great Price thumping Mormon. And it was kind of funny, because I remember when I was a kid, I was about 10 or 11. There was a friend of ours when I lived in Florida, before my mom turned Mormon, who gave me a book. I don't know if anyone, I'm 47 years old. I will be here in a couple weeks. And there was this book that you used to get back then, who talked about, I forget the name of it right offhand, but it showed you, about you growing and the feelings you're going to have and things that are going to happen with your body when you become a teenager. And one of the things it says in this book, what was very interesting, is that masturbation was okay. Go ahead and do that. That's fine. And I got that when I was 10 or 11. Now, when we joined the church, I remember we had moved here to Utah. My mom thought Utah would be just a great place to raise me. And I love Utah, don't get me wrong. It's a very beautiful state and what have you, but me being non-Mormon and atheist, It drives me nuts of some of the laws that they have here, like when you have to buy liquor, hard liquor. Beer you don't have to, but hard liquor, it's the state controls it. There's been a big thing about marijuana use. Marijuana is they're talking about beer bills to get medical marijuana here. Some people are pushing it, but then you got the Mormon Church who's going out there, you know, a bunch of members saying we don't want this. This is terrible. But Utah leads the nation also in prescription drug use. Look that one up. Matter of fact, 2 years ago, there was more people that died of pharmaceutical prescription abuse. There was more deaths with prescription abuse than car wrecks in Utah. Believe it or not, it was a very just interesting statistic. But hey, that's legal. Marijuana, that's bad. Have you ever heard anyone ODing on marijuana, for Christ's sake? I haven't. Now, granted, I don't want to get off subject here too long. There is some of the synthetic marijuana which you want to steer clear from, because I heard that's very bad for your brain to do that. But regular pot, strong in and of its own. But anyways, that's a different topic. We'll discuss that some other day. Get back on the topic at hand of porn addiction in Utah. Now, they were talking about, I was like, well, what are they going to ban it? Are they going to ban porn? And I'll admit, there's porn addiction is not a very good thing. A man who relies on that every night for their gratification. I know some people do it 2 or 3 times a night. Teenagers, I've heard, do it 5 or 6 times with porn and masturbation. And what happens is that does a number on your head. It's a very interesting talk. Go to TED Talks. There's a guy who's a psychologist who talks about it. And this is a very common problem, not only in Utah, but everywhere. Mostly with teenagers, mostly with males. They say it's like 40 to 45% of males have a sexual addiction of porn. And I'll admit I did at one time. What happens is, if you do that on a constant level, there's chemicals and what have you in your brains that change, and you burn out your pleasure centers, and you're always relying only on porn for your sexual gratification, because when you become with a woman, you'll have a very, very difficult time getting an erection. The only way you can do it is by looking at porn. It's sad. It's a true fact. Very interesting talk. I suggest you look it up. So I'm with them. There can be a problem, and this could be a problem. I've heard of people just rely on porn and masturbation, don't want to date. They end up make you, believe it or not, turn very depressed because you just have this addiction to porn. And it is a problem. And I'm not arguing that there is not a problem, but I know the solution behind this problem. And it's because of the mantra that the Mormon Church uses, that when a kid turns of age of 11 or 12, what do they start doing? Well, you get into the bishop's meeting. I recall this quite clearly. And then they start prying into a kid's sexual habits. Do you masturbate? They ask these questions. Do you masturbate? And 75 to 80 to 90% of boys, I'm pretty goddamn certain, gets in the office and will say yes. And A, there's no other adult around when they ask these questions. I totally disagree with that. How uncomfortable is that? Do you really know this guy? I mean, I know, he's your bishop, I suppose. But, do you really trust this guy to be asking, and a male asking females this question? I don't know if they do. I'm pretty sure they do. Are you chaste? Do you masturbate or not? And I'm sure that this makes these kids at this age feel very uncomfortable. And then there's going to be a great deal of shaming going on. Oh, how dare you shouldn't do that. That's just terrible, and you should be ashamed of yourself, and what have you. And like I said, I think this policy should totally start. It should be with the parents. They're not going into your temple and getting married or anything of that nature. Wait till that's older before you start doing that nonsense. I think that, and I've heard of a lot of not people who have fell away from the church, but whose kids still go, have totally objected to these bishops asking these questions, and a lot of the fathers of the non-member fathers have written the bishop and say, I don't want you asking those questions. That is none of your business. That is something I would like to teach my kids if they are not doing that. And I personally think it's a problem, and I personally think they should make laws. I think that's, in my opinion, a form of child abuse for them to be asking these questions. Comment section down below. Go ahead and please agree or disagree with me on this subject, but it's no one else's business. Now, what's happening here is when a kid turns that age, particularly males, testosterone's going through the roof. They are going to be aroused, mind you. They are going to do these things. That is just all there was to it. I did it 5 or 6 or 7 times a day sometimes when I was a kid. So I found this, just, growing up and looking at Utah and this problem with porn addiction, and where did it come from? And I think, personally, that this comes from the way this church is when it comes to masturbation, and kids at that age do that. This is a normal thing. Would you please leave? I don't remember seeing anywhere in this supposed Bible or Book of Mormon that says that masturbation is bad for you, or horrible, or God is watching. He's concerned about what you're doing in the privacy of your home. 12, 13, 14, 15-year-old, he's watching you, and he's writing notes about whether you are masturbating or not. There was these very interesting talks about from Boyd K. Packer that apparently he did for the priesthood, saying your body's a temple, and your penis is a factory, and if you tamper with it, blah blah, all this other horseshit. That dumb old fuck didn't have any clue what he was talking about. This needs to be not demonized, and just let it be. For crying out loud. I don't want to go too much into this, but I always like to look at I don't know, look at Europe, look at Britain, where sexuality in those areas are a little bit more open. They're more open about it. Kid walks down the street, he sees magazines of nude individuals. No big deal. You look on TV, nudity is on TV quite quite a, on I wouldn't say a constant basis, but it's still there. The parents of a lot of these atheistic communities that are less, less have to do with church and what have you, and God, and all this other nonsense. If you look at these kids when they grow up, they seem to develop a little normally and don't have these problems that we have here in the United States when it comes to sexuality. I'm tired of this country shoving religion down the throat, telling me, what I can't watch on TV, pixelating this or that. I've got to pay for something to get nudity or something like that, and demonizing sexuality. But hey, war's good. That's okay. Killing people's okay, but a human body's a fucking horrible thing to look at. But like I said, if you look at teenage pregnancies compared to, well, here in Utah, I don't know these statistics right now, but I do recall at one time, back in the 80s and 90s, used to be 1 in 1,500 teenage girls would get pregnant because they have that out of sight, out of mind policy. The parents don't really teach kids about sexuality. Well, guess what? They're going to learn it on and on. Today, they got all kind of ways to learn about it. They have a phone, they have a computer, they have their friends. They're going to learn it from them, whether you like it or not. So either you start talking to your kids about this instead of some bishop or something shaming you into believing and demonizing sexuality, then you're going to continue. Utah and all these Bible Belt states are going to continue to have problems. There was a statistic recently, last year if I recall, in Mississippi, one high school had a huge breakout of gonorrhea and syphilis. I don't know if you recall this. And I just was laughing my ass off about this because they have this out of sight, out of mind, no condoms policy. Well, kids, guess what, are having sex. Teenage kids are having sex, regardless of whether you like it or not. And you shaming them and you not teaching them about it, it's just going to make them do it more and more. You've heard of the preacher's daughter, who was always a slut, who the most sexual, promiscuous person to find. It's guaranteed to have sex with anyone, etc. Do not see a problem developing here. Is there no correlation between your religion, your slut shaming, masturbation shaming, and et cetera, when it comes to sexuality? Do not see the correlation. Like I said, look at Britain. There's a lot less, how am I trying to say, the crimes against women, rape, what have you, a lot lower there. Way lower. I'm not saying it's not existent, of course. As long as there's testosterone in a man's body, it will always be there. But it's not as high. Here in Utah, it's quite high. BYU always has problems with stalking and rape charges that I always hear left and right about down in BYU. Provo, Utah. That's just down the street from me, just about 30 minutes away. They always hear about this. And I'm like, and then, of course, look at the video that BYU came out saying you should squill on your friend for watching him watching masturbation. a war on Tug is what a lot of the big joke is about it. And it's just funny because since they're making such a big goddamn deal about this, it's just going to make the problem worse and worse. My suggestion to the Mormon church, and to any church, is to just knock it the fuck off. This is what kids do. This is when they start experimenting with their bodies. They don't know what's going on. So it's good for parents to explain to them what is going on and make them take it. And I'm betting you if you discuss it more and you don't shame them more, then they should have a more healthy sexual relationship when they get older, when they get married. Like I said, that's what they do. That's the mantra. That's the status quo here in Utah. And what do we have? We have people addicted to pornography. Very, very bad pornography use here in Utah. And like I said, I'm not saying stop it completely. Once or twice a week is probably okay. But every night, all the time, that's a problem. This is turning into a problem. And here we are getting national attention here in Utah because of this. I think they need to change their policy. I think the Mormon church needs to knock it off with when they start asking these questions to 11, 12, 13, 14, 15-year-olds. It's just going to make them feel more guilty. It's going to make them do it more and more and more. One last thing, there was a very interesting article. There was a very interesting case back in the 90s about a kid up in Idaho. Back then, they used to have a policy called better to die clean than live unclean. And this was when the Mormon church was talking about quite drastically about guys masturbating, how you're unclean, so you should pretty much, in a nutshell, kill yourself. This boy up in Idaho was 13, 14, 15 years old. At age 16, he tried 2 times to try to kill himself because he felt so guilty about this. On the 3rd time, he was successful. He successfully killed himself because of this church. The Mormon church had this better to die clean than live unclean. Now, what's so funny is right after that, they stopped teaching that. And the church is slowly starting to kind of, I don't think it's 100% yet, but they're slowly working their way out of doing this, out of this shaming and all that. I think they're slowly going to do it. One thing they took off, there was a guy, Spencer McKimball. He had a miracle forgiveness. He said stuff that's saying, if you masturbate, guys, it's something close. It's close to like you being gay. You're gonna turn gay. There's a good chance of you turning gay if you continue to masturbate. That's just the most ridiculous fucking thing I've ever heard in my life. They apparently did away with miracle forgiveness. They don't have it in print anymore, and which is good. Maybe they're turning a corner here, and this things that these old stupid fucks say, they're trying to hopefully back out of. And like I said, they need to stop with this going on and telling that masturbation is bad and guilt shaming him into it. They need to stop that. maybe they need to worry about more of the alcohol and drugs part. By all means, yeah, that needs to be talked about. Sexuality and them shaming is just going to make the problem worse. That's what I'm thinking. Please give me your opinion if you think otherwise. I'm just kind of spouting out some ideas that really bother the hell about me in this state that I live at. Anyways, talk to you later. Maybe I'll figure out something soon to talk about. I hope you like these. Talk to you later. Go Carolina.